Welcome to the Opportunity Zones podcast. I'm Jimmy Atkinson. I'm thrilled to be joined today by Jim Lang of Greenberg, Traurig, on site at the 2025 Yellow Brick Road to QOZ 2.0 here at the Montage Deer Valley in Park City, Utah. Great venue, great conference so far,
Beautiful
Jim.
venue.
Yeah.
It's been a great and beautiful weather. We're looking out on the mountains right now.
Yeah, it's fantastic. I don't know if you can see it in the background, but nice sunny day, a little bit of snow still in the background. A couple of the attendees here went skiing this morning, I understand, and some are staying through the weekend to ski some more. I didn't bring my skis, but I'll have to try that. Hopefully we can do another one of these next year, and maybe I'll have a chance to do a little bit of skiing. But Jim, and you were on the podcast recently, just a couple weeks back.
Yes.
Before the conference, but now we're actually here on site. So tell me, what are your impressions of the conference so far? And maybe you can tell our viewers and listeners at home, if they're not here, you know, what have they missed out on, and who is here, and what's the main purpose of this conference?
No, it's been a fantastic group. I think we have a great core here in the room, and we've heard where we want to go in the industry, and we heard what from. I think one of the things I'm very happy about looking back at who is here is the differentiated crowd. It's not one set in the industry, and it also shows how wide and how broad the QOZ world is. We've got operating businesses, we have onshore manufacturing, we have critical minerals, we have representation from some of the largest QOFs in the industry. We have lots of projects. We had a project panel yesterday. All 4 of those projects that I've watched on that panel were all top notch, and they're the type that. And they're high impact. They're exactly what QOZ should be talking about, and they're the ones that should be in front of the administration and Congress as we talk about legislation and what's coming forward in the future. And interestingly, we got the House while we're on a policy panel. Essentially, the House had passed the Senate's bill, and they came to agreement with each other. So now we're really off to the races in the legislative process.
Yeah, that was quite a moment yesterday, and if I can make an admission, I was sitting up there on stage. We're about to speak on the panel, and then Harold mentions, just as the panel gets underway, that the House just passed that, and I have to turn to Shay, and I said, wait, did that just happen? Because I hadn't even heard that news yet. I was watching the news last night, and I saw that they didn't have the votes, and I hadn't kept up with the news within the last few minutes when we headed up on stage. So I was on stage when I found out that the House did pass the Senate's version of the budget resolution. So now that unlocks the reconciliation process, and they're already beginning to draft legislation on Trump's agenda, and OZs will be a small but very important part of that agenda.
Oh, absolutely. Right? We're underway now. So this was incredibly timely in terms of sending the messages that we think should be included in the legislation to make QOZ 2.0 an enhanced version of all the successes we've had in the first 7 years of the incentive.
You couldn't have timed it better. That was Thursday, April 10th. We're recording this on day 2 of the conference, Friday, April 11th. And I've had a great time here. It's a great group that you have here. We're just breaking for lunch right now. What have been some of your biggest takeaways from the conference so far? Maybe what have you learned, or what have some of the attendees learned by getting the industry here together?
I think the greatest takeaways that I've seen the last few days have been some of the challenges that we've seen over the last 7 years. We also have heard lots of successes over the last 7 years, but I think the challenges are more important because that tells us, what do we need to fix? How do we get this working more in the way that we would like it to work? Because we've already had incredible success. We were talking about what kind of numbers have been invested in QOZs and the type of impacts that have been in QOZs over the last 7 years, and it's incredible. But there's plenty of challenges. We're looking at real estate has been the vast amount of investment in the space. We need more operating business. We need more rural projects, both real estate and operating businesses. We need to help targeted industries. We need to make this a tool, a primary tool for affordable housing, for workforce housing. And I think that's what's been the most interesting. And it was also the goal and the agenda here is the agenda setting and what to get so many in the industry to give their input as to what should be in the next legislation and what would be helpful for really revitalizing these communities and making QOZ be the tax policy tool that enacts the the goals of this administration.
Yeah, a lot of the agenda setting, I feel like, is being done here by some of the individuals and groups that are represented here at this event. We were fortunate enough to have Shay Hawkins and Jill Homan from the America First Policy Institute join us yesterday here, and there's just been this huge assortment of ideas that have come out of that group and Novogradac and a few other groups, and I think the industry is kind of coalescing around some key priorities that
Absolutely.
we're going to take to lawmakers on Capitol Hill. What are some of Jill and I yesterday spoke at length about that laundry list, so
Right.
maybe you can just highlight what do you think are some of the most important 2 or 3 priorities for getting opportunity zones expanded with some legislation coming hopefully later this year.
Right. I think the ones that are probably the most important are obviously getting us hopefully out 10 years. I mean, we would all love permanency, but in a reconciliation bill, you can't. That would have to go through some other type of legislation, which is possible, but that's not on the timeline of reconciliation. So we would love a 10-year push out. That gives us new life in the QOZ space. Having rolling deferral periods that also bring back the 5 and 10% step up in basis, I think, is incredibly important.
Absolutely.
The ability to roll over interim gains within 12 months, so that the tax tail doesn't wag the business dog, and we're in a scenario where you did what you were supposed to do. You either created a great business or you did a impactful real estate transaction. You can sell that transaction within the 10 years and roll those over and do it again and do something else, and that's what the policy is about, is making sure that we can do as much as possible, not necessarily just locking you up in one project for 10 years or one business for 10 years. So I think that's important. And if the opening up the democratization of the incentive to ordinary income. I think that those are some highlights. I've got lists of things that have been brought up here that we've talked about. I think affordable housing and workforce housing, I think this could be an incredible tool for that, by getting the banks involved more. Banks have not been wildly involved in the QOZ world, and there's reasons for that. Primary, that they don't have lots of capital gains. So opening up to ordinary income brings banks back, having CRA rules that allow them to get Community Reinvestment Act credit for every OZ investment that they make, and also opening it up to debt products in targeted industries for affordable housing, workforce housing, onshore manufacturing, disaster relief. For those types of projects, some sort of a tax exemption for banks would have banks in this industry in a major way, and I think that's important. And that, because you don't just need equity to get a deal done; you need equity and debt, and I think that could be very interesting.
Getting the banks involved would be huge. You mentioned onshoring manufacturing. That seems to be a big theme that's gaining a lot of momentum these last several weeks here with respect to the Trump tariffs that have rolled out and then rolled back and then rolled out and rolled back again. I think we're going to see a lot more of that, and I think opportunity zones can be leveraged to help bring that reshoring or onshoring of domestic manufacturing back to this country. We heard examples.
And shipping. We just saw just yesterday, also timely, we saw the executive order on maritime, which we have friends in the industry that's very important for.
That's right. I highlighted on OpportunityZones.com some months back a shipbuilder in Mobile, Alabama that's building nuclear submarines, and we mentioned that on the panel yesterday. And they're doing it within an OZ, and they have an OZ structure around it as part of their capital stack. So OZs, building nuclear submarines, I never would have guessed that 6-7 years ago, but here we are.
There's some interesting industries in this space.
Yeah, and there's so obviously real estate is the 800-pound gorilla here. Right. I think 75% to 90% of all of the OZ equity is going into real estate projects, but there's a lot of non-real estate projects. We heard some examples yesterday. We talked about the nuclear submarines, but in addition to that, Graham Allison highlighted the medical fields that he's working in the Appalachia region. We heard from another panelist who was talking about critical minerals processing. What are some other examples?
Well, and I think this next panel, we've got operating businesses. So we have a tech startup was on a panel yesterday.
That's right, yeah. John from Anode.
Yes,
yeah.
we've got this next panel that I know we're about to go to has sports-related development, and there's been ownership of sports franchises within qualified opportunity zones. We're going to have some of that discussion on our next panel. We've got energy, so renewable energy and the crosshairs between renewable energy and QOZ. You brought up healthcare. We've certainly seen interest in healthcare, rural development, operating business, so logistics types of companies. We've had discussion on panels here about that. I think that it's hospitality. So management of hotel assets, I think, has been quite a discussion. But I think businesses, so leaders from economic development groups have been here and talked about the importance of businesses growing in QOZ 2.0 and what do we need to make that happen.
Good. Well, Jim, it's been a pleasure being here on site with you these past couple of days. I hope we get a chance to do another one of these down the road. If not later this year, maybe next year. You could do another one of these. I'd love to come back and join you.
I think this is the first of hopefully many of these. And this one was put together very quickly. So we have the right people in the room and the right people here. And some of the right people couldn't make it and should be here. And we're sorry they couldn't be. But because it was put on so short, we don't have the numbers that we would normally have at these, but we have a fantastic cross-section and core group.
And it's still been phenomenal. Again, thanks again for hosting us today. Before we sign off, if we have audience out there who's wondering what can they do to help move the ball forward on some of these policy goals, what's your call to action for them?
Well, one, contact your members, and if you have any contacts in the administration, please contact them as well. Talk about projects, high impact projects that really have helped the community that you know about. If your members are home, arrange a tour for them, or
that's
have
members
them,
of Congress.
Right, members of
House
Congress,
representatives,
right,
senators,
members, yes. Have them in their own districts go see either the business or the real estate project that has been impactful in the community, and then writing letters. In fact, we're probably going to post after this a form letter for folks to get in touch with their member or the White House about what we should be doing in QOZ 2.0 and what this legislation should look like for the enhancement of QOZ. And then to the extent you have the ability, either work yourself or resources for the America First Policy Institute, work with others in this real estate roundtable, EIG, work through Jimmy. We'd be happy to help you, connect you to the right people. The Novogradac Working Group. All of these are policy forward groups that are making impact here, and get in touch with them and see how you could help get their policies forward and how you can assist them in what they're doing and what all of us want to see happen.
Lots of great suggestions, and if you're not 100% sure where to go, just come to me, and you can find show notes on today's episode, and I'll include some links to some of the resources that Jim just mentioned on our website. Just head over to opportunityzones.com/podcast. Jim, it's been a pleasure joining you today. If you guys out there enjoyed today's episode, give us a thumbs up, and be sure to subscribe to us on YouTube or your favorite podcast listening app to always get the latest episodes from opportunityzones.com. Jim, thanks again.
No, thank you, and thank you all.